We know that the ANC was scrambling to register candidates. The question on everyone's lips is, are they going to be scrambling for votes?
It certainly looks like it when you take a look at this poll from Ipsos, which came out late yesterday, Clement, asking people in the second week of August who they would vote for if the election would be held the following day. And those stats really give you a sense of where people are in terms of their mindset. Let's take a quick look at the numbers, and we're going to compare the different parties' performance in 2016 and then look at this Ipsos poll. The ANC, in terms of total votes, getting about 54% of the ballots in 2016. And take a look at that, Clement, falling in this poll below 50%. If that happens, it would be the ANC's weakest performance in any election since 1994. The DA, about 27% in terms of the 2016 election, dropping all the way down to 18% in this Ipsos survey. The big winners in all of this, Clement, based on this poll, are the EFF. They got just over 8% in the 2016 municipal elections, surging in this particular survey all the way up to 14.5%. What's interesting about that, Clement, is that the EFF, you would assume, doesn't have the kind of money that the DA or the ANC used to have, at least, maybe not now, but used to have. So they tend to rely more on rallies, more on going door to door. And of course, that hasn't been possible during the pandemic. And yet, we're seeing those numbers climb. Something to note as we head into those polls at the end of October.
Interesting data. So those are the big political parties. What about smaller parties? Where do they feature? Yeah,
and we've got a new player in terms of this particular game as well, Clement. Let's take a quick look at some of the smaller parties and how they did in this particular survey, Clement. One of the new ones is Action SA. Interestingly enough, getting 1.5% in terms of this particular poll. The ACDP also, similar figure. That's higher than it got in the 2016 elections. One of the losers in this poll is the IFP, falling about 3 percentage points all the way down to 1.4. The Freedom Front Plus making some gains, climbing above 1%. But Clement, weigh in on this if you feel like it. 5.3% of the votes in this Ipsos poll going to smaller parties, so parties that are even smaller than those, the so-called minor candidates, many of them just running in certain jurisdictions or certain wards as opposed to national or provincial parties. You have to wonder, Clement, if the vote won't be split in some ways when you consider that 5.3% of voters are thinking of casting their ballot for these so-called minor candidates. Also, Clement, another factor in all of this are the so-called yes, no, maybe voters. Let's take a quick look at that. So in this poll, many voters saying that they were uncertain, around about 2.5%. Some saying that they would refuse to answer. They didn't want to give a definitive answer when it comes to the party they would support, another 2.5%. And then around about 2.4% saying their vote was confidential. Add it all up together, Clement, and that's about 7.5% of voters. Of course, the ANC would be very happy if it could get all of those, because then it could recoup some of these losses. But it seems right now quite unlikely that the ANC would be able to claim every single one of those votes, Clement.